Welcome back to I Love Your Stories. I'm your host, Hava Gurevich, and my guest today is an award winning international artist, scuba diver, and marine conservation advocate, Janavi Folmsbee. Janvi's work lives at the intersection of art and science, and her passion, curiosity, and sense of purpose are truly inspiring to me. Shaped by a life changing first dive, her practice brings together research, collaboration with scientists, and a deep love of our oceans to create work that connects people to the beauty and complexity of marine life. In this episode, we talk about ocean optimism, interdisciplinary art, and what it means to create work that resonates both emotionally and scientifically. I'm so excited to have Janvi on my podcast. Janvi, welcome. Now, quick word from our sponsor, and then we'll get right back to the show. When I started selling my art, I had absolutely no idea how to actually turn it into a business, a professional business. And then I came across art storefronts, and that was a game changer. I've been a customer now for years, and they've been instrumental every step of the way of helping me succeed. I have a gorgeous, powerful commerce website. I have marketing tools and a membership to a community that is very supportive and teaches me how to succeed as an artist. Check them out, artstorefronts.com, and tell them Hala sent you. All right. Welcome back to I Love Your Stories. I have a very special guest here with me, Janvi Folmsbee. Janvi is a multimedia artist. She's also a diver and an advocate for
Conservation?
marine conservation advocate. Thank you. Janvi,
Mhm.
I've been so excited to speak with you. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
So let's start with maybe if you want to say a little bit about your background and how you got to conservation, how you got to make art about it, just a little background.
Yeah. So I started diving when I was done with art school in 2008, which is interesting. And wait, I should tell you why I started diving. It started with this. So I grew up in Mumbai across the ocean, like the Arabian Sea, and water, like whenever I was down or feeling lost, I'd go and sit and look at like the ocean, and I would just, meditate really to get like calm and try to understand answers. Being a woman, being a young woman in India at the time where I wanted to be an artist, where it was not socially acceptable, was very difficult, honestly. At least in my community. I come from a family of civil engineers and architects, and they all wanted me to take up the family business because I was the oldest in my family. And I just remember being 16 and told, like, if I wanted to be an artist, I would have to have my first exhibition. And if I sold art, they would let me become an artist, which was kind of weird, honestly, to think of and messed up in the world at the same time, but also very realistic. I have my own battles with that, the consumerism of art at the end of the
Yeah.
day. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, I had my first solo exhibition at 16. I sold art, and my father said, "Okay, which art schools do you want to go to?" And I applied to three, and I got into all of them and decided to go to the coldest weather wise art school. But I
Which was
studied
where?
Chicago, at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. I fell in love with the museum. I said, "Wow, I have to go to art school over here." Um, but it was so cold, and there was this little tropical Indian girl coming to Chicago, and I was so lost. There was no ocean, but there was the lake, and water was like a common thing. And again, when I felt like I'd go to class, and I'm like, I fell flat on my face. I had never left the country in terms of just like going to live somewhere other than traveling all over the world. I'd never gone and lived alone. I didn't know how to do laundry. Like, I was so sheltered in my Indian society. um, and I I mean, like, I love to cook, so at least I knew how to feed myself. Uh, I learned how to cook from my grandmom. She taught me a lot of things, but clearly laundry was something no one taught me.
When you did art school at the Art Institute in Chicago, what kind of art were you doing then?
Okay, so my practices was very well-rounded, like, SAIC is the kind of school that where you can take all these different classes, you build your own practice, and that's why I have a super interdisciplinary art practice because I studied this is so weird, French Revolutionary art history. I majored in that, and then I studied, like, painting techniques, old school Renaissance techniques, and, like, pigment theory and the chemistry of paint, which is why I have a really strong sense of color and color theory. I make a lot of my own oil paint in the studio for my oil paintings. I use
Oh,
pigments. I work with pigment labs. It's been very difficult past COVID, honestly, because a lot of places have shut down and we don't get a lot of the same pigments we used to. Um, so, I gravitated naturally towards color after learning pigment theory. And I have the scientific brain. Like everything I learned in school has been very helpful, weirdly. It also teaches you to be innovative and learn new techniques because even
sure.
after school is over, new materials come out, like
Yeah.
technologies out. So my brain is always constantly adapting. I'm
You
like,
learned the base. You learned the
yeah,
framework that
yeah.
lets you sort of adapt to anything new.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
weirdly, if anyone tells me today art school wasn't helpful, I'll be like, I disagree. It was super helpful for me and I learned a lot. I also was taught how to have a tough skin because I went to school in the early 2000s and there were definitely things said that were not okay there.
Yeah.
But back to the ocean. Anyway, I went home and then my mom asked me, anywhere in the world, where would you like to go? And I said, I want to go to Lakshadweep, these islands above the Maldives. I had childhood memories that were really, beautiful and special. And so that's where I wanted to go diving. And I picked those islands and we actually weren't planning to go diving. We were going to go snorkel. It was literally like you could walk into 12 feet of water and a reef is right there. And it
Oh.
was like squids everywhere, beautiful creatures that don't come out during the night, because it was just it was this natural reserve, and it was rare. Not a lot of people go to it, and, unless you're Indian, you wouldn't really know about it. I ended up going diving for the first time, not knowing how to use my equipment was terrifying, but I wanted to see what was in the water. I said, water has been a constant for me. Growing up as a kid, it's been the one thing that has given me peace and solitude and happiness. And I feel like it physically and spiritually does connect us all on this planet, which is why I say.
Absolutely.
And what's fascinating to me was when I first dove, I just remember this moment of feeling one with my breath and invited into a beautiful world that I definitely didn't belong to, but I felt welcomed and
Mhm.
invited. And it was so beautiful, like the colors, the and just hearing your breath. So it is very meditative, it is very spiritual. And so I said, this, I don't know what this sense of euphoria is. I want to recreate this moment for the
Mm.
viewer. And so that has been a constant for me in all my work is recreating this kind of tension or space where the viewer can stand and look at a work of art. They don't have to feel like it's part of anything for them. It just gives them a moment of calm and collectiveness where they can breathe within that sublimity and enjoy it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, from your very first dive, you
Yes.
were hooked, and
I was a
so much so that it became the subject of your art from
yeah.
that moment on.
So much so that it became a big part of my life, and, like,
Mhm.
every year I would dive, and I'd make it a point to go diving, to the point where I got certified into, like, being able to do some really advanced diving and take it on as a sport, as a part of my philosophy, as a part of who
Mhm.
I am. person, a scuba diver, an artist, a ocean advocate.
So you became an avid scuba diver. You this passion translated itself into your art. Where did the ocean conservation come in?
Okay, so after diving like for quite a long time, maybe 5 or 6 years, I started bumping into scientists and people, and then
Mm.
local divers. And a lot of the local divers would tell me about what was happening on the reef, and I would communicate that information back to marine scientists working in that region or field to the point where I started getting invited to make art for scientific papers, collaborating with scientists where they're like, I don't know how to explain this theory visually. Can you help me? So I worked with like several marine labs. I worked with one out of Rice University, and I did like these weird scientific diagrams that turned out to be like studies for paintings and actual works of art. They were published in the Global Change Journal. And then eventually I went into like creating art towards advocacy, where because I really feel like out of sight is out of mind. It sucks.
Yeah.
There's a reason why artists exist in the world, right? Like I feel like you think about even going back to French Revolutionary art history because that's like something I studied. I think about Amara and like all the paintings that we've made and how historic and important they were for their time. And people needed to see that. Even though like we could look back in the news, art leaves like a person wanting. They leave the memory of what happened. So I ended up working a lot with marine scientists locally,
Well, locally
specifically
where?
in Texas, like in Houston. And it's very interesting because we have some of the largest institutes for marine science are in Texas, interestingly, with Texas A&M, um, which works on a global platform. And then NOAA, I started working with like, I there was
Mm.
scientist named Dr. Adrian Correa. I did a presentation for the flower garden banks during National Sanctuary. And the way this happened was I started making public art. Um, I really believe in divine timing. I think things happen for a reason. Every small project I've done in the past has led itself to where I am today. So, but that doesn't mean you say yes to everything as an artist.
Right.
I, I've been very particular and just said yes only to things that make sense with what my work is about. Um, if it's something, it's strange. I really believe that things that have not worked out have not been in my best interest. It's okay.
Um, One of the themes that I like to explore is this idea that sometimes when something is going right or you feel like you are where you need to be, but you look back and you see how you got there. Like, and sometimes it's just so things that at the time felt like a failure or felt like, you know, something that didn't work. And thank God it didn't work because it led you to this to the thing that you're supposed to find. And the thing you said how that very first dive um really, up until then you loved water, but that's about it. And then suddenly this vacation and you go on a dive that's not even like you haven't even like learned how to dive yet, but you go and it it changed your life.
I think this is part of being mindful and aware, also just to be receptive to the universe and what it
Yeah,
sends your way.
yeah.
I trust my instinct. Sometimes I've said no to projects that might have been really large, and I look back and I see how they were executed or they didn't work out.
Mhm.
There's been times I've had public art projects, I've been selected for finalist stage, and I've even procured the project, and then all of a sudden the program changes and I realize, oh, and it didn't work out. And I'm like, oh, thank God it didn't work out. Yeah.
You mentioned that this kind of dynamic between scientists and divers. And, I really wanna pick up on that, because you said you said something like, you would be talking to other divers, and then you'd share that information with the scientists, but when we talked earlier, you put it in another way that was just beautiful. This advocacy, like talking about diving from the context of
Yeah.
advocacy.
Yeah. So, okay. So, one of the reasons I think I have had luck with this is because I really believe if you want to get someone incentivized to understand or care about something, if you show them just hardships, they're not going to understand it. And I feel like we are so overloaded with negative information today on
Yeah.
like on a general platform that it is nearly, like, exhaustive, and like, the brain can only retain so much, and then I feel like people are more depressed than they've ever been. For me, was, like, personally, I have my own battles, we all have our battles, but when you talk about negativity, I don't think it does anything good, and I'll never forget, like, Jane Goodall, like, has always said, "Hope is so important,"
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and I mean, it's tough as an artist who's constantly making art about the ocean and wanting to get people to care. I'm like, sometimes they don't. But that doesn't matter. I feel like if I can show them a different part of it that they don't see every day, and I
Mhm.
use the optimistic side of showing them, "Oh, look at this cool sea slug. It's a sea slug, but can I tell you why it's cool and what does it do and how does it fertilize this area on the reef or, what does it eat and it keeps things in check and look at how blue it is even though it's ugly and black." I can sell a sea slug. If I can sell the sea
I
slug
nudibranchs are like my favorite
they're
things.
they're beautiful. The newborns are cool. Like, I really believe in the power of ocean optimism is what I call it, and I call it ocean abundance in terms of like or bioabundance in terms of species, and just having multiple species and why they work together. It's
Mhm.
like the importance of each one on a reef and what it does.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what my
Yeah.
work is about. Say like it really lends itself well into the science because it works as a tool towards education.
Mhm.
I think the first step is educating people. Once they know more, then they feel more incentivized to care.
If I share your affinity to marine life and, as far as my art's concerned, or just in general, and I like to say that if I had another life to live, not live this life over, but if I had another one that I would become a marine biologist because I just love marine life so much. Um, but then I take a step back, and this is something I really love to say, and I'd love your reaction to it. I think one of the most like the best things about being an artist, like one of the things I'm most grateful about being an artist is that I can pick any subject that's interesting to me, whether it's
Mhm.
like spirituality, evolution, marine biology, ecology, whatever it is, and I can study it for myself as much as I want. I can go as deep as I want, but I can go as deep as I want to make my art. I don't have to like become a scientist. I don't have to like write
Yeah.
theses and all of that. And it gives me that freedom, um, that multidisciplinary freedom to explore subjects and then they become part of my vocabulary.
Yeah, I mean, who was it? Was it Schubert who said art is greater than science? Because one of I think science is all about accumulation of data, as the other one actually is translating that data,
Oh,
if
I
that makes
love that.
I'm paraphrasing it, but that it's actually it's called the Book of Philosophy by Will Durant, and there's actually a quote about this by Schubert. And it's true. And I remember reading that when I was young and thinking, that I wanna be an artist. Like, it makes sense.
Yeah.
No, I mean, like, so for me, just working with the marine scientists that I've worked with, I've realized, like, science is so it's heavy and it is accumulation of data. It is literally calculating all of the information that's being put out there, but beyond that and presenting it, what happens next?
Mhm.
Right, like, you
Yeah.
can get investors to a certain degree, but it's so heavy and dry as a subject. it's hard for the general public to
for the general
comprehend
public.
it. And it's hard, and I think that's why me as a public artist, all of a sudden, it's a tool. Like,
Mm.
even it's interesting, even my paintings, I feel like work as a like they're all I'm an installation-based artist. I look at even each painting or series that I do as an install. And like even the work that collectors buy, I feel like are installs or plants that go into their home to share the
Mhm.
stories of different locations. Like I literally have something called a Lockett series. They're my version of diptychs where they look like diptychs together, but they could be sold as individual oil paintings. And the idea is for different parts of the planet to be conversing about it.
Oh, I love that. I
And
love
then
that.
it's kind of
Yeah.
neat, like, when you get word from the Olympic Northwest and all of a sudden it's like in Asia or in
Mhm.
Persia or like in Portugal somewhere. So I mean, and then one goes back to where it's from, which is in Canada. It feels wholesome to me as an artist to know that that's where the art lives, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. It's not about being attached to the work. I have this strict rule of every work of art, move on to the next. The next idea is
Mm.
the better one, and just keep going because the ocean is so abundant and my inspiration is endless. Um,
What are you
but
most passionate about right now?
Right now, I'm very curious about exploring something called coraline algae and how it works on a coral reef system. I feel like it's something we're not studying enough of scientifically, and it was actually a question that was posed to me by a marine scientist I work with out of Australia to consider thinking about it to bring more attention to coraline algae because it's literally where a coral spore goes and sits and turns into an entire reef. It
Oh,
also functions, yeah, like that's where your coral starts to grow. It's I call it the magic pink stuff.
like a
Um,
coral nursery.
yeah, and it's this sticky looking pink algae that you could see in different regions all over the world. So I'm like not only photographing them when I'm diving, I'm also photographing them in tide pools. I'm also painting them in my paintings and I'm showcasing all the different places and how and a lot of the marine species. So really I am very focused on bioabundance. I'm focused on how different reef systems and tide pool systems work together to keep species in check in their food chains as well. The work
You
is very
talk like a
different.
scientist.
Yes, it is very research based, and, like, the interesting part of it is I'm also very intrigued about how some species are doing better, not in their natural habitats, as opposed to how they are in their habitats. So, it started with me thinking about how we have something called ocean cup coral that's an invasive species in the Flower Garden Banks National Marine Sanctuary, and I was really, like, curious because in Mumbai, I saw ocean cup coral, and it's not growing very well, it's doing terribly. Um, and in Indonesia, when you see it at its natural size, it's so beautiful. But then when you see it overgrowing in Texas, what was interesting to me is to see when you see it one of these coral species in their natural habitat and how they're growing, and they may not be doing so well. I started to really think about how are things doing better on other sides of the planet that are not supposed to live there. And so that's a conversation I'm curious about.
Yeah, that's
And
really interesting.
it
That
is an anthropogenic thing. When anthropogenic means like changes to the natural habitat due to human changes. So, like, some of
yeah,
these cities were brought over on boats and how they went over from one side of the planet to the other. That's us, right?
right.
But if it's thriving there, I'm wondering, well, can we not do something as a human being to
Mhm.
do a reverse anthropogenic change, which sounds bizarre. Um, so that's the artist brain, right? Like to question science and push scientists to think more.
And
Um,
it's yes, it is. You're kind of like a Renaissance woman in that sense, where artists and scientists were the same person. So I know you're having an exhibition. You have an exhibition that's opening. By the time this podcast airs, it's going to be open. So
yes,
do you want to tell us a little bit about this exhibition?
So, yes, the exhibition's at the Rockport Center for the Arts. It's in Rockport, Texas, on the Texas coast, which I think is really succinct for it to be like my first solo museum exhibition. And the works are inspired from all over the world, over 10 decades of like 10, sorry, 10 years. So 1 decade of like scuba diving, I guess. I'm not that old. I'm not 100 years old. Now, it's really beautiful. The exhibition is titled Magic Water, and it's this the space is a large space that I've literally approached it where each wall is a different installation.
Mhm.
And so it starts with a work called Conversations of Our Sea, and then it goes into my lenticular underwater photography, which I have been using now for a long time. I think it captures movement underwater really well, and it shows you some of the references directly to the work in the show. Um, and my work, obviously, like my oil paintings. And then, yeah, it's called Portal Magic, which is cool. It's neat. The exhibition has all my research drawings in vinyl print form. So I'm doing a mural
Nice.
to say. And then I've got over 140 different sculptures that are
Wow.
porcelain pieces that are really cool.
I've
But
seen those on your website. They're gorgeous.
they don't look like 140 sculptures when you see them. It's like an installation. They're all these sea anemones inspired by different colored sea anemones from South Africa and from the Olympic Coast National Marine Sanctuary.
So the exhibition opens on
May
April.
April 18th, and then it's, on till June 7th, and it's open to the public. It's free of charge. There's no ticket fee or anything to enter and see the exhibition, and I'm also having a opening reception on May 9th from 5 to 7 p.m. It's called the Rockport Center for the Arts.
And it's in Rockport, Texas.
It's in Rockford, Texas.
Okay. For somebody that doesn't know your work and just a member of the community that just happens to walk in and look at the work, what are you hoping that they will get from it?
Well, when they first walk in, I want them to be completely enthralled and feel the same thing I said when I first experienced when I was
Yeah.
diving. It's about beauty for sure. It showcases the beauty of our oceans in both abstraction and realism. Um, I think that is one of the things. They don't have to think of anything. If they want
Mhm.
to know information, that's where I leave them wanting. And I feel
Okay.
like usually when you see the work, some of it is self-explanatory. Each title of the work is named after the dive site or the, like, tide pool location or where I
Mhm.
was working. So the work is witty in that sense. It naturally makes people want to know more, if
Mhm.
you know what I mean. So I want to leave them happy, hoping, and wanting to learn more, which usually happens most of the time.
Okay.
So yeah.
So you want like the advocacy to like get in through the back door. They get so excited about what they're seeing and then
Well,
they
think
look.
of it. That's kind of what I've done and been successful with. I realized, like, when you bombard someone with heavy information, um, it's not something they are necessarily going to gravitate towards in the most polite manner. So I've learned this is the technique to do it. Like, no one knew what the flower gardens, like, until we did the Aquarius Art Tunnel, which is this massive installation in Houston. People weren't so aware. So I was like, let's start. I'm talking about India, I'm talking about the Pacific Northwest, and it's literally the show is called Magic Water. That's the title. It's about the magic in our oceans and
Mhm.
the water and how they function. So, yeah, I think it'll be interesting, like, to see the response and reaction. And so far, I tested it out with a few scientists to see what they think, and it's been kind of fun. So I'm excited to see what comes out of this.
I'm really excited for you. I
Thank
wish I
you.
could be there. It's
Yeah.
I
Oh,
wish I
and
could get there.
it's also like been officially endorsed as a UN Ocean Decade activity, which I think is important.
Wow.
So it does, yeah. I
Mhm.
worked hard. Like, there is a catalog that goes with the exhibition, and there's like scientific research based into all the work. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's a fun way of telling people, like, this is what we have and how can you help. There's some answers there too, and what we can do to start
Mhm.
with our own community. It's very focused on the concept of one ocean, which is how we're globally connected on one planet through our
Well, that's the
waterway.
That's what you're talking about, seeing the map with just the
That
water. It's
yeah,
all one body of water.
and that's honestly the work conceptually does that.
Yeah,
So that's what you would walk away with, if that makes some sense.
that's absolutely makes sense. Final question for you, and this is something I like to ask all my guests. You've been involved in so many different scientific projects, advocacy, your art, exhibitions, dives, um, school, all this amazing
Public
life so far. What is your definition of success?
Oh my god. This is a tough one. I keep getting asked this question by many people. And, success is contentment, if that makes sense. Um, I feel like you could always want more. I've learned just even trying sometimes that whole no I don't know, like, because I come from an Indian family, you have to understand, I was told if I didn't get an A in school, I was not doing well, but I was never getting an A in school because I was studying physics and math. Um, when I see your whole body of work executed, or I see, an entire public art installation, and I see somebody walking through it and smiling and happy, that has given me more of a moment of, like, a tearjerker, something that pulls at the
Yeah,
heart. It's more than, like, any grant proposal or
yeah.
anything could do.
It's that connection with another
Because
human.
yeah, I realize, like, any I mean, like, I could list my accolades. My resume is there. I don't need more,
Mhm.
honestly. It's about what the art does for people. I've seen kids to families who don't speak a word of English rejoicing and enjoying my art. And when I've seen it actually function towards science and helping scientists, that has been more rewardful than anything.
Yeah, I love
And I
that.
feel I feel like my work is not done because there's a lot I have to do.
It's never
But
gonna be
I've
done.
learned to be really grateful and sit in gratitude and thank those moments. And I really believe in divinity. I really believe in divine timing. I believe in manifestation. I wouldn't be here if I didn't do all of
Just
those.
like me connecting with
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like you love the ocean.
Yeah,
I love it when other artists are inspired by the same thing because I'm like, we all have to care. This planet, it's for everyone. I say water is for all of us. So
yeah,
yeah, like that. I like literally, you know how your hair stands up when you're like, "Oh, like it's awesome. Because I'm just thinking like I've won awards. The awards have not felt they feel great, don't get me wrong, I'm not gonna say no to an award.
right.
I've won, like, international public art awards, I've won awards and grants, but that's nothing in comparison to seeing a random stranger, like, photographing themselves with your art,
Yeah,
or you know what I mean? I don't know how to
absolutely.
explain that, if that's it sounds weird, it's
It's
different.
not, it's not, because at the end of the day, art is visual communication.
It is,
And
yeah,
you're telling a story and someone listened and understood, and
yeah.
that's what makes it real.
Or, like,
Um,
even when a collector purchases a work of art, but it's in their home and they're so happy with it, it's not even
yeah,
about making the sale, really. I feel like the one thing I love to do as an installation, multidisciplinary artist, I like to be there to see the install in the home and help navigate it because I want everyone to be happy, and when I see someone smiling at the end of the day, I don't know, that to me is success. Like,
that
we can apply to grants and do things for the rest of our lives. We can apply to 100 projects. We could have 100 people buy the work, but every time you see somebody actually moved by it, I don't
that's
know.
what counts. I want to
Yeah.
thank you for this. I could talk
Me
to you all
too.
night.
I know. I'm sorry. I feel like I'm very sciencey, so I don't have a science like, there you go. You don't have to be a freaking marine scientist
Exactly.
necessarily. But I will say I love working with them, and, I have some really good friends who are marine scientists, and right now I think they need more, like, inspiration than ever because it's tough at this time.
Hmm.
Like, just
Yeah,
when you're constantly, like, getting data and nothing's happening with that data, And I feel like that's something I can help with,
Mhm.
you know. Yeah, it's been fun. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much. One last thing, how can people find you if they want to learn more about you?
They can definitely find me on my website for sure, which is janvifolmsbee.com. But
And
I
we'll have the information in the notes.
also they can definitely find me on Instagram.
Awesome.
For my more information on what I'm doing at the time and up to date stuff. Studio sneak peeks if you want to see my stories. I usually post things here and there. Um,
Fantastic.
yeah,
Thank
thank
you
you.
so much. Really
Thank you
appreciate it.
so much, Ella. I appreciate you too. All right. Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks again for tuning in. That's our episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please help us out by leaving a review, a comment, subscribing, sharing it with your friends. Every little bit helps, and I really appreciate it. And before we go, I want to give a huge shout out to our sponsor and producer, Art Storefronts. If you've been thinking about turning your art into a real business or just want to level up your online presence, now is honestly the best time, especially with the holiday selling season coming up in Q4. I can't stress this enough. Art Storefronts isn't just a website builder. They're a full-blown partner for your art business. They give you the tools, education, and marketing support to actually make sales, not just sit online and hope. And if you're unsure whether your art will sell, no worries. Just head to artstorefronts.com and sign up for a demo. They'll give you a free art review and a marketing assessment of your art to show you exactly what's possible. So go to artstorefronts.com, tell them Hava sent you, and I'll catch you on the next episode.